Start that right now. There we go.
Got it.
All right, so thanks everyone for coming tonight. We're going to continue our discussion about ONCA. Before I turn things over to David, I wondered if we could just all take a moment just to introduce yourselves and what club you're from. So why don't we start with, it doesn't look like Henry's in the room. Let's start with Rick.
He's back.
Hi, Henry. How about you go first?
Better turn off the distraction in the back. Am I starting?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, okay. Henry Weichert, Southampton Rotary, past district treasurer, current assistant treasurer for Southampton Rotary, and yeah, interested in seeing where we can go with this particular project.
Great. Awesome.
Rick
Okay.
Coates, president of the Rotary Club of London. This is my second go around in that role. My first one was 2006, 2007. After I'd spent several years in the District Rotary Youth Exchange program in all of the roles, ending as district chair of the Youth Exchange program.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rick. Betty, do you want to go next?
Sure. Betty Southgate. I'm from the Godrich Club and I'm the treasurer.
Okay. And then we've got Mike.
I'm nobody.
He's nobody.
Mike Chafee from the Rotary Club of Flint, and I'm your current district governor.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. And then I see Erin is on the call. Hi, Erin.
Hi there, everyone. I'm from the Port Elgin Club, and I wear a few hats over there. But my claim to fame, new claim to fame this year, is working on the Friendship Exchange program for our district.
That's great. Thanks, Erin. Welcome. Jim.
Hi, I'm with the Rotary Club of London. I've been the secretary for the last, I think, 16 years.
Getting good at it though, probably.
You know, I've got to the point where it's time for me to leave and someone else can take it over, which is what's happening.
Yeah.
I was president back in 88, 89, and at the district level, I was chair of the RI Foundation Committee. I think I'm the only non-past district governor to have had that honor, but I enjoyed it very much. And working with Rick has been a lot of fun this year.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
In fact, Jim came on as our club secretary my first year as president.
Okay. Great.
I can just pass on regrets from Susan McDonald, who was our past president. She wanted to be on, but has turned up sick, so she had to bow out today.
Okay. No worries. And I think then that just leaves Kenton before David Daglish, right? Kenton?
Sure. I'm Kenton Acton with the Owen Sound Rotary Club and currently sitting as the Owen Sound treasurer.
Okay, great. And then David, I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'm going to let you take the meeting over.
Sure. I'm David Daglish. I'm the current chair of our legislation committee, which was founded by a former president and many hat wear in our club. He passed it on to me after I joined Rotary about 4 years ago. So with that, I finished his good work stick handling our new bylaws through and our re-registration with the CRA to make sure that we're all good with our foundation. So that puts me as part of our foundation board. I have a little bit of history as a governance and strategy with boards in other companies is my regular job. So some of this comes as norm and some of this comes as new for me.
Great. Thanks, David. And again, I'll let you take over from here. You're going to go through some new things on ONCA tonight.
Okay, so I thought I'd just run through the main sections of ONCA that and where we've been advised that we need to take special care in making sure that our documents meet ONCA's requirements, and some of the hazards that we've been advised about, and make sure that you guys won't fall into traps that are there to trap the unwary. And then I think we should go through and just sort of see what at this point you see external resources from outside of your club, what you would like to have help get you through the ONCA process. At some point, our local lawyer was willing to assist groups in sort of doing a sanity check, pointing out the weaknesses or areas where you could improve. Catherine was suggesting there might be some funding available, or us all working together means one generally smaller legal bill for each of us. Some sort of negotiation that way. So we'll go through and see what you folks think resources you might need to get you through. So I've been sort of slowly putting my thoughts together in a document. It's currently sort of point form. Eventually, I'll definitely share it with the group and have it available for any of the other groups that come along. Say no, but essentially, that there's the Clio website has very good resources on how to get started and get you going through there. One of the key considerations is make sure that you've got all your documentation that exists right now. What are your letters patent and supplementary letters patent that founded your group, and then all the other things, including your bylaws, your minutes. Pull it all together. The Clio website does have a pretty good list. In terms of finding out what you have filed as your sort of articles of incorporation, your letters patent, that's where the business number for your business registry comes in handy. I haven't gone there personally, but this is one thing that's supposed to have for you, is to have all your officially filed documents are available through that portal. Then the next step is to evaluate your possible changes.
I think we had a question. Betty, did you have something you wanted to ask? I guess not. Okay.
No. Thanks. Yeah, if anybody has a question, just jump in. If I seem to be rambling on and somebody has a question, has noticed, please bring it to my attention. Thank you. There's sort of a bunch of key areas that are important to document. Directors, officers, your members, auditors and finances, and ensuring that there's some form of a dissolution process in there, should that be necessary. We all hope it's not necessary, but if something happens, that needs to be spelled out in a way that makes sense for your group, as opposed to what the government decides is the default. So looking at the directors and officers, you have to make sure that you itemize how many. A range is appropriate, because then you could because they really want a number of directors to be put into the articles, the officially filed articles, which are very difficult to change. So if you put a range in there, and then your bylaws can be adjusted to specify any specific directors or a periodic change to the number of directors. Of course, some groups have it as, there's a promotion ladder or level of experience that people have. Others are just strictly volunteer. But you do need to try to make sure that you've got sort of reasonable coverage of directors. This is a governance side rather than the ONCA side. Make sure you got some directors who are aware of the needs of your group. You have the specific investment activities you may be in, what the sort of things are that you're dispensing, your charitable causes, that they're there to help you manage your group. It's better to avoid directors that are directors representing a particular subgroup of your category. We'll talk a little bit more about that, because they really like to have just a single class of members and they're a suite of directors. You can break it up and have subclasses, but that gets very, very complex in terms of the amount of documentation that they expect you to have for each of the groups of members, their voting rights, why they're that way, how you move from one level of membership to another. So it's better to avoid directors that represent a particular subgroup of your membership, as an example. We're all small enough that we don't have like regional management. I've dealt with a number of sort of province-wide or Canada-wide groups where they have.
I have a question with respect to that. You talk about subgroups. We have a satellite club as part of our Rotary Club of London, and the chair of our satellite, which is basically a subgroup of our Rotary Club. They're Rotarians and members of Rotary Club of London, but their chair, they run their own meetings and undertake projects, and we have tie-ins with our club, but the chair of the satellite club sits on our board and has a director position.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the rest of the directors are simply directors with the pursuant to fiduciary duty as a director of our club. And that we have officers, of course, but who are directors, such as treasurer and president-elect and president, etc. But I'm thinking about the subgroup being our satellite club, whether
Are they likely to stay for quite a while as a satellite group, or are they sort of getting themselves marshaled so that they can move off and be their own group?
At this stage, there is no end date to them. They haven't set that as an objective.
Okay. That might be something then you need to specifically address as a separate action with a legal advice. It just needs a little extra documentation, and with the requirement, I haven't found the specific part of the legislation where they say that they want all the director information to be put in the articles as opposed to the bylaws. So that might be something that we need to address with the lawyer.
It's covered in our bylaws.
Yeah, but the requirements of ONCA are making changes to the location of specific parts of what used to be the bylaws.
Okay.
So yeah, it used to be you could define, you had 14 directors. They go through a bylaw change and change that to 7 directors. That was something quite easily done within each group, but now they're wanting that to be the director.
Okay. So that might be a question for Matt Orchard, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that it can't be done. It's just it makes things a little harder to, a little more documentation to put together.
Right.
Yeah, Jim?
The foundation I work with, what we did is simply for directors indicated that it could be between 5 and 10.
Yeah.
And then moved on from there.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we did it as well. But then we were told that we have to refile as part of ONCA. We need to refile and put that information in our articles of incorporation.
Right.
Which then get filed, and it takes a little more work to change. So then specify within the bylaws how many directors are currently and sort of where they come from, for example. So in ours we have
we just redid the bylaws with that added to it.
Yep.
Okay.
So then if you have directors, you say how the people can vote for them. Again, Rick, in your case, then you'd have to document that that the people voting for the chair of or that make that an ex officio director, somebody who's a director because of their position. And then that's outside of the scope of then somebody else documents how that person gets to be that position. You also have to itemize how people are able to step down or be removed from the role of director. And there's a lot more record keeping they seem to be insisting on in terms of filing director's resignation letter, sort of any sort of documentation in the equivalent of an exit interview type. You know, what were the reasons for leaving outside of the normal term of directors, and any if they're being removed for cause, you know, itemize how they can appeal it. What are the processes for that? And note if you have subgroups with directors representing them, in that case, then it's only those people can vote to remove them. So if you have, for example, a director for a subgroup, you can't just force them out. You have to work with the other group to write that down. Also, then you have to identify how our board meetings called, how often they're called, what notice is required, and what constitutes your quorum. You should also probably itemize how far in advance documents need to be provided ahead of the board meeting for them to be considered fair purpose. Members, again, then you have to define who they are. Single class of members is preferred. If you have non-voting members, it's better not to call them members. Better to call them honorary Rotarians, associate Rotarians, whatever sort of term you're using to why somebody is a member of your social group, but not eligible to vote as a member of your not-for-profit organization. You can do it, but it just requires an awful lot more documentation about what the rights and privileges are of the group, how they move from one status to another status. It's just simple to keep just those who vote called members and those who are not voting called something else. You also need to document the best practices to document both in-person voting process and with our learnings from the pandemic, electronic voting. And then also what constitutes quorum. When you're counting the votes, it's easy in an in-person vote to say, okay, the people who are there. In an electronic vote, what constitutes the numbers that you're basing your vote upon? Those eligible to vote, those actually voting. It's interesting to note that if you're having an in-person vote, the chairperson running the vote, if they do a count and say the vote passes or the vote fails, doesn't matter what the actual count is, their word is final. That's again another one of those fun little things that gets stuck in the laws. And then you also should document whether proxies are allowed, and if so, how are they assigned, voting, and designated. In terms of your voting, you should also, again, how much notice is required to make it a legal, legitimate vote. When are the documents, if available, if applicable for the vote, available? So, for example, how far in advance of your annual general meeting are you supposed to have your financials available for your group to vote on? And again, what is quorum and how does quorum work in the different types of voting? Note that this is one thing that we got into quite a back and forth over, was motions from the floor during a meeting. If you note that there's director's insurance for directors making decisions and having financial or legal impact. There's no members insurance. That's because the board is always responsible. So essentially, for anything important, the board presents decisions to the members, and the members vote yes or no. Anything that gets passed has to be board approved first. So that if somebody comes to your meeting and wants to raise a motion from the floor, Generally, it should be, you need to work into your bylaws that you take that information back to the board, discuss with the board, and present an amended presentation to the members for again a vote up and down. We had a member who really wanted it to be able to have changes to things put from the floor, and that's untenable within the realm of the act. What is allowed, what we have allowed specifically is, for example, somebody nominating a director during a voting for directors during a meeting. That sort of thing is quite legitimate to be voted from the floor. But in terms of changes to bylaws, changes to procedures, that should be board approved and then accepted by the members or rejected by the members. Last main one is auditors and finance. They've done a real, at all of us with our own separate foundation, charitable organization, are governed by there's two classes of public service and not public service. I can't remember the exact terms, but essentially we're all in one category, and the terms are, if the gross annual revenue is under $100,000, we can dispense with an auditor and an audit by a special resolution of the members. And that means it's an 80% approval of the members, and you can dispense with an audit and an auditor. If you're between 100,000 and 500,000, you can have a review engagement. Usually costs about half of what a full audit costs. It is, with most of us, where we get cash donations at events and whatnot, is quite normal and quite acceptable for pretty much anybody in looking at our books and our accounts. And that can be set, have a review engagement instead of a full audit, again, by special resolution. So 80% of your members at the annual general meeting saying that's what we'd like to do. If you're over gross annual revenue of $500,000, then you must appoint an auditor. You must have a full audit. Yeah.
What happens if you're running one specific event where you have, but the net proceeds are what flow into your foundation, but you have gross revenues and you have related expenses and all of that? What do they treat as that? How do they factor that into those levels? Are we talking those levels being the gross revenue level?
Yeah.
Or
that's the gross revenue. It's strictly the revenue, ignoring all expenses. You may have no profit, but you've got $500,000 coming into your organization.
Wow.
What we've done is we have passed a provisional, because we're in a good year, we're just over the $500,000, and in a so-so year, we're in that middle ground. So we have passed a resolution that so that if we are in the lower level, that we'll have a review instead of an audit. Now, generally, your year end is in the middle of the year, and then 6 months later is when your financials need to be done and approved and audited. So there's usually enough time to do a full audit based on sort of the quick measurement of where you are at the end of the year.
this is a note for Jim. We're going to have to discuss the implications of the Rotary party, because we happen to have all the money flow through the Rotary Club of London and the foundation but it's a group of Rotary clubs in the London area that participate in this. So we're doing it to help them as well. So we'll have to investigate whether we can continue that relationship.
Is the resolution required on an annual basis?
Yes. Yeah, it's generally you at your annual general meeting you set up for the next year.
So you're making your resolution for the coming year.
That's right.
Yeah. That's 80% of the people voting or 80% of the membership?
Again, if you're having an in-person meeting, then it's 80% of the attendees of the meeting. If you're having an electronic vote, then it's 80% of the people who are eligible to vote. Unless you define that it's the people who actually vote. But
Thank you.
Okay.
so those are the things that that we've been the guidelines that we were used to define our bylaws. I was surprised that the act itself is not terribly legalistic. It's just very, very, very detailed. So if you are of a bent that you can stand reading it, it's not a bad idea to sort of download it from the government website and just skim over it, look at the table of contents and see something, and see if there's something that that is a particular interest to you or particular need of your group, to just check out what it says. And of course, I'm not a lawyer, so everything I'm saying is a recommendation to you as a friend, and you should be definitely consulting with somebody who knows a little more before you put things in. Yeah, Rick.
David, the bylaws that were circulated from your club were for your foundation.
That's correct.
Is your club actually incorporated as a separate entity?
Yes, it is.
So you're doing bylaws as well for the club? I'm assuming that.
Yes, we're taking the bylaws that we've created for the foundation. We're doing a final set of changes because they were done based on the provisional ONCA that was passed back in 2010 and updated in 2015. So there were a few clauses out of date. So we need to make sure that they're up to date, which Matt owes us an update for it. And then we're going to take them and change as necessary to reflect the needs of our club. As I said, most of us with a separate foundation should have essentially 3 entities. The social group known as a Rotary Club under Rotary International, the actual corporate Ontario Corporation, which is the club, and the Ontario Corporation, which is the foundation. And the key one really is the foundation, because that's where most of us truly have our money coming in and out of under the CRA rules, hopefully.
I think
Henry.
Aaron had a question first, and then we'll get Henry, okay?
Okay, Aaron,
Aaron,
sorry.
did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question, actually 2 little ones. One is that we just redid our bylaws last year. We probably would have done them again, never mind ONCA. But my question is, how much change is required for the RI? That's the RI recommended club constitution and bylaws is what we used. It wasn't what we used before, but now we have it, and it's like lovely because we all match up with Rotary International, but maybe we don't match up with ONCA. What do you recommend?
That's something that we've had. We haven't got a definite answer back from our lawyer yet. Our first pass and his first pass is that there's nothing that stands out as any conflict between the two. It's just that generally ONCA tends to be a little more specific because of the more the financial, the fiduciary responsibilities within a foundation.
Okay.
Did you have a second question?
That almost was my second question. We don't consider ourselves or talk about ourselves as a foundation, but you've used that a lot last meeting and this one, and we call ourselves a charity, like a registered charitable corporation. So is there something different, foundation to registered charity?
Well, we have our club and our foundation are two separate entities. So their foundation is the one that is filed with the CRA that can write tax receipts, that has their investments and does all our charitable disbursements. The club itself is more of a, the operation of a social group.
Right.
As a separate group. It was founded and then the charity was added onto it, but not done 60 plus years ago and not done appropriately to modern standards. So that it was broken out over the last 4 or 5 years into a separate operation. If you are properly registered as a charity in your club itself, all this applies to you. You just don't have the two pieces that we have here. It's just that my understanding from talking to some other people was that most of the clubs in the district, which are really facing ONCA issues, are ones with a charitable foundation. Now it sounds like you've got yours are integrated within your club as one unit. But if they've been going for more than 50 years, then that's something that needs to be done. Usually.
And well, we incorporated in 84.
Yeah.
But we're 85 years old as a club. So that was 1938. So yeah. I don't know. I guess we need some advice.
Right.
Our situation, yeah, well, basically our situation more or less parallels what Aaron was talking about. We have the what we call a charitable trust, but I guess it again is CRA registered. Now, does that come under ONCA rules? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah. Well, okay. It doesn't matter like the club. It's even just a club without any money as a charity organization. You're still.
Yeah, I understand that. Again, the different entities. We're just trying to get our head around that for starters. But basically, yeah, the club, which is non-charitable, is registered provincially, but the trust, I believe, is registered federally as a charity.
Well, again, there's two different parts to it. One is where the official legal definition of your group is. It can be the ONCA or the Canadian level of it, but there's also then you have to register it as a charity with the CRA, and it doesn't matter where you are, it's always with the CRA. There's not an equivalent. So
okay. Actually, my original question was, and maybe I'm a little ignorant on this, right at the outset you talked about a CLIO website. That's an acronym for something or another, I believe.
Yeah,
what is it?
It's a support group for not-for-profit, clio.on.ca.
Oops, sorry, is it CLEO?
Yeah.
CLEO.
Yeah.
.on.ca.
.org.ca?
No, .on.
Oh, .on, sorry.
Yeah, it's an older registration, it seems.
Community Legal Education Ontario.
Okay.
And that link would have been sent in your last package that you received. So with the recording, but maybe Mike, we can put this up on our website somewhere. In some documents up on the district website. That be okay?
He looks like he's frozen.
There we go.
Yeah, now trying to find the unmute button. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sometimes takes a little bit of time to get your head around the whole thing.
Yeah, it does for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I was getting to understand it with 2 groups, and then now you mentioned 3. So.
Well, yeah, that we all have to register as an organization, and that's registering as a not-for-profit
right.
incorporated entity. And for Rotary, it doesn't make sense to register nationally. But so the ONCA generally would apply to all of us, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter our level of finances. Then if we're operating as a charity, then we have to register with the CRA.
Right. Now, I guess we've got both those. Now it's just a matter of trying to get our bookkeeping in order, not necessarily bookkeeping, but our legal documents.
So, my understanding of the history that that Stratford came from was the way it worked back when 60 plus years ago, when we started our charitable arm, getting donations, large donations from through bequests and such, to extend our operations. It was operated as a separate entity legally, but not properly in the 21st century rules appropriately. So we had to go through, that's where we're a little ahead of in terms of ONCA, was that we had to change everything around and break out the club and our foundation as two separate legal entities. And doing so, we set up our charitable foundation under the ONCA rules as they were then available.
Rick, do you have a question?
Yes, you mentioned a lawyer in Stratford that you've been working with. Can you, either you or Catherine, send us contact particulars, email, phone number, address, etc.?
Yes.
Yep.
No problem.
There's another somewhat useful. We worked in terms of getting ourselves re-registered with the CRA appropriately. There's a group called Carter's.
Carter's, yeah.
They're a legal firm that are in Orangeville, Ottawa, and Toronto, and they do a twice a year seminar on things not for profit. It's $25 registration. They've been doing it. They do it online. They don't record it, so you have to be there in person. That generally is an entire morning. So there's one that's coming up in March.
Oh, maybe you could send me the details on that too, David, and I can share that with the
I
group.
can put that up on the line.
Yeah.
They cover all sorts of information, so not a lot of it is ONCA specific. It's always been a topic for the last 2 years, but there's also some other things that may or may not be appropriate for you as well in terms of going forward.
Okay.
Great.
So maybe who has reviewed their bylaws in the last 5 years? Good.
Our secretary has raised the hand, so he can vote for us.
He's speaking for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've done that, then you're probably not in too bad a shape. But again, like I say, look at the Clio website. Wait a week or two for me to put my further thoughts into reasonable form, and then have another look at your bylaws. Again, the critical point, which is that you're essentially being asked to refile articles of incorporation sometime before the end of 2024, October 2024.
October 2024, yeah.
Yeah. Which replaced the letters patent and supplemental letters patent that would have been filed in the past. So, Erin, you have a hand up.
I do. I have just gone through a little bit of the, oh, is it still? Is it off? On?
There we go.
You
It's off.
can hear you.
Oh, good. There's this little flashing thing saying you're muted. I'm like, oh, I thought not. But anyway, my question is that I have just gone to the Ontario Business Registry website, and I've applied for our company key, and I have an account now with OneKey, and I have no idea why. I don't know exactly what that's going to help me do, or is that just so that I can update our club profile and change directors or submit documents, see what they think of us?
All of the
All of the
above.
above?
All of the above is worth.
Okay.
Yeah. And also investigate what what are the forms of your articles of incorporation, whether they be articles of incorporation or letters patent or whatever other magical document.
And Aaron, when I did a search on the Ontario website, Port Elgin came up twice. You had
Oh.
two different entities.
Just
So
what we
you
need.
may have to
Yeah,
do a
twice
little,
as much.
yeah, you may have to dig a little deeper.
I will do that. I know that we've been mixed up with the Rotary Club of Port Elgin in New Brunswick a few times. But so now every time I write the word Port Elgin, I always add Ontario because they're the very same name. But it's probably there. Maybe maybe we are two entities. I don't know. We'll have to find out. It's an adventure.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that would be an important step to make.
Yeah.
Betty, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. You said we had to refile articles of incorporation. What changes do we have to include in the articles that weren't in our letters patent?
That's the detail that I haven't got an answer for yet. So this is where, the director, your some of the parts, definitions of your directors, their numbers and whatnot have to be in, that haven't in the past had to be in, like a letters patent may not have had that information in there.
So those details that you talked about at the beginning of our meeting.
That's right. So those
Yeah.
those are the, and again, so that, and it also then collapses letters patent and supplemental letters patent into one document and refile. You may not have supplemental letters patent, but some will.
Okay, so is this something that you would be taking to the lawyer to get direction from?
Yeah. Yeah, my perusal of the act, I'm only about halfway through, so I haven't found where they say what's expected in your document, in your bylaws, and what's expected in your articles. So it is supposedly laid out, maybe in some of the guidance supplements, or some of the amendments that exist outside the act itself.
Do nothing.
Commercial break.
Can I ask a somewhat related but not the exact question, which I should probably know the answer, but I don't. In the years past, when we filed our annual report with CRA, you listed your officers and directors for the year that you were reporting, which seemed fairly straightforward. Now you file them separately through the Ontario website. And I started thinking about, like, I'm giving information that's already out of date. Like, what is the point in telling them what last year's officers and directors were? Should we be telling them the current year's officers and directors?
What one would hope that it's going in as a document, and if there's issues, then they can go back and say, okay, well, for this year, there's the information. For next year, here's the information. I believe it's a historical document, that this is your summary of your year, and here are your directors for that year.
Right.
Yeah, which was fairly obvious when you were filing through CRA. As what here you was separate, and I say it sort of got me thinking about am I doing the right thing?
My understanding is that when you file it with the Ontario, through the Ontario portal, that they forward the information then on to CRA. Or there's there's a separate filing for CRA now. I'm trying to remember. Again, that was one thing that was covered in the last Carter's seminar.
Yeah.
They have a very, very thick supporting set of documents with it. So
The CRA that doesn't forward to Ontario anymore.
no.
No. No, well.
But they're looking for different things. So it's not like you put a whole bunch of things into one document and send it off, and
Yeah.
All sorts of extra information. It's you file the appropriate information with the appropriate people.
Yep. Anyway, we'll do it that way. It's just a thought that came to mind when I was doing it. I said, what is it they really want to know?
Follow the bouncing ball.
All right.
Kenton looks like he's got a big pool party going on in the back there, so maybe we should close down here and go and join him.
Do we have any other
That's it.
questions for Dave tonight? Anything else, David, that you would like to tell us tonight?
I think I've exhausted my set of information
Okay.
at this point.
Okay.
I guess the next one is then what do we want to see happen in the next month or two,
Right. Okay.
and how do we address all the questions with Matt, get some activity going.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if on one of these next calls that Matt shouldn't maybe be on the call with us to answer some of those specific questions. How does that sound? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to wait for David to finalize that document that he's been working off of tonight. I'm going to start to collect all of these documents in a folder on the district website. And then and I do have a couple of specific things that I think I will talk to, or we can talk to Matt about. And then maybe in our next meeting, we can see if we can have him join us. Does that sound like a good plan going forward? Okay, great. Anything else anyone wants to ask about or comment on?
And you will be sending out the contact information for Matt, because some of us might want to start.
Yep.
having
Matt,
him
I'm going to
evaluate
send
the-
you Matt's contact info and Carter's. And then David's going to give me the dates for that session that Carter's does in March. Those are the things that I have highlighted here. And then we're going to ask Matt specifically about your satellite club, because you might not be the only satellite club in the district. Do you know, Mike, if we have other satellite clubs?
They're the only satellite club in Ontario.
Okay. Then it's specific to you, right?
This time.
Okay, good. All right. Well, 2-0 is the score. So I'll let you all get back to that, and I can open some doors so that I can hear my screaming sons who are cheering for the Canadian team right now. So thank you everyone for being with us tonight, and look forward to chatting with you again, and I will send some supporting documents to you all. Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all. Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Have a good
Have a good
night.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go Team Canada.